You're listening to The Gary Harris Show on Tide 100.9 in Tuscaloosa. The Gary Harris hosts Tider Insider TV, Crimson Tide Kickoff, play-by-play for Alabama sports, and sports director for WVUA 23. It's time for The Gary Harris Show on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Gary Harris Show for this Wednesday Hump Day edition, October 9th, 2024. I'm your host, Gary Harris. Chase Brumfeld, of course, is alongside, helping out, doing all the heavy lifting this morning, taking your phone calls on the Pinnacle Park at North River Hotline 205-342-9904. That's 205-342-9904. As always, we got a good show on tap for you. I'll run it down here in just a second. Going to get in plenty of phone calls again today. It's been an active week so far with the phone calls. I expect that to continue with all that's happening right now in SEC football, and particularly what is happening with Alabama football after that very, very, very disappointing loss to the Vanderbilt Commodores this past Saturday in Nashville. Right now, I want to go ahead and tell you that this hour of the Gary Harris Show being brought to you, as always, by Alabama Credit Union, your trusted partner for financial success. Embrace financial well-being with Alabama Credit Union. Find out more at alabamacu.com. It's member-owned and not-for-profit. Believe me, that's just a better way of banking. Alabama Credit Union loans for real life. Some rules and restrictions do apply. See if you're eligible for membership. Then join today and feel good about your money. And put a little extra change in your pocket. All right. As I said, we're going to have plenty of time for calls today. We've got two guests, and neither one of them are particularly about football. Matt Coulter on NASCAR at 9:30. Boy, it's been a crazy NASCAR playoff session so far. And then at 10:30, Larry the Music Man from over in Atlanta will join us to talk the origins of Southern rock and more with our music segment. And in between, we're going to have Clark Lee, the head coach at Vanderbilt. His press conference this week was supposed to be to look ahead to the Kentucky game, but as you might imagine, a large portion of the questions were about the Alabama game. We're going to run some of those clips. Vandy has still yet to come down off their perch after knocking off the Crimson Tide. Also, Shane Beamer, we've got his press conference as the Gamecocks get ready to come in here and play Alabama on Saturday morning as a 21-point underdog. Initially, I saw that line, and, you know, of course, what am I saying? I mean, I have, after that 8-1 start to the season on my picks, I've crashed and burned, I can tell you that right now. That's why I do it for entertainment purposes only. And I think last week, and I hadn't even wanted to even look at it, I think I was 1-5 last week, Chase. I'm pretty sure that was right, but I'll double check it. But anyway, my initial inclination on that 21-point Alabama line against South Carolina is it's too many points. That's just my gut feeling right now on Wednesday. I haven't picked the game. Well, I did pick the game for Tider Insider TV, but we'll keep that to Tider Insider TV. But that's a lot of points, I think, for Alabama to be laying right now the way that they're playing on defense. I mean, I got to thinking about it. I was telling Barry Sanderson this during the break. 12 of 18, Vanderbilt was on third downs, but one of those third downs led to a fourth down, and they scored the touchdown on 4th and 1. And the other third down stop Alabama got, they had a penalty for illegal participation. That means they only turned the ball back over to the defense 4 times. 12 of 18, but 2 of those third downs, Vanderbilt didn't give the ball up. On a 4th down, they went for it and got a touchdown. And on another 4th down, they punted, but Alabama had a penalty. So only 4 times did they get the ball back for the defense. That's just not good enough. I mean, that's just not good enough. And, I mean, 4 times did they get it back for the offense. I mean, that's just too many, too many third downs that Vanderbilt converted and 4th down, and then you give it back to them on a penalty as well. That's why Alabama lost the game. I think if Alabama has more possessions in the game, more time of possession, they win. If they could get the ball back even there at the end, I've been saying this all week, but you score a touchdown with 2:40 or so to go in the game. You got 3 timeouts, plus you've got a 2-minute timeout, and they wound up taking a knee. I mean, it's embarrassing. I mean, I don't know any other way to put it. I mean, the game is on the line. On the line. And you can't get them to a 4th down. Again, think about that for a minute. Your defense, with the game on the line against a team that give them credit, and everybody's giving, I'm tired of giving them credit. Nobody has shortchanged Vanderbilt. Nobody has said they didn't deserve to win the game. Nobody has said they didn't play great. Nobody has said they didn't have a great plan. In fact, they've been showered with compliments. But for Alabama's defense In that situation, you've got them starting inside their own 20-yard line. You got 3 timeouts. You got a 2-minute timeout. And they get to take a knee. They get to take a knee to close out that game. I'm putting that on the Alabama defense. I mean, I've been a little tough on them, but I'm going to continue to be a little tough on them. Just like I would have gone for the onside kick. And in that situation, I guess, if they decide they want to throw the ball deep, they're just going to get a touchdown on you. But I'm going after that quarterback.
I think the one thing that I was talking to a couple callers, and I'll keep this brief because we do have someone on the phone lines. I'd rather us lose to Georgia than lose to Vandy.
Oh, sure. Of course you would.
This is disappointing.
Of course you would. I mean, you don't want to lose to anybody. But in terms of the perception of the loss, yeah, I mean, a loss to Georgia, while the Georgia fans would have been relentless, it would have been a much better loss. This is and listen, I'm going to see what Vanderbilt does going forward, too. I mean, I know everybody's ready to crown them a SEC championship contender now. This is still a team that lost to Georgia State, okay? They lost to Georgia State. They lost at Missouri. And I don't know that Missouri is going to turn out to be what everybody said they were. And maybe nobody in this league is. There is a lot of parity. But let's see what they do Saturday night at Kentucky. My hunch is Kentucky's going to have something waiting on them. But we'll see. All right, let's jump out on the Pinnacle Park at North River Hotline. And Jim is going to lead us off this morning. Good morning, Jim.
Hey, Vanderbilt only punted twice. So what that means, the defense only turned the ball back over the offense twice?
Well, I'm just saying in terms of some of those downs were touchdowns, obviously, led to scores. I'm just saying that in terms of the third down, if they were 12 of 18, and maybe one of them might have been the end of the half or something like that. But if they're 12 of 18, that technically would have been 6 times you've got to stop on third down. They went for it on fourth once and got it. They punted one of those times that didn't wind up counting as a punt because they had a penalty. That would leave 4 possessions where Alabama technically got stops. But you might be right. Maybe it was only 2. But I'm just saying based on the third down conversion chart, they were 12 of 18.
All right, now let's explore. No, you don't cut me off.
Right. One of those was they took a knee at the end of the game too. So
okay,
yeah.
Hey, don't cut me off. I mean, cut in while I'm saying it because I know you're going to disagree, but hear me out first, so by explanation. Sure. Anybody that makes the playoffs is going to have to play 4 postseason games. Okay, even the top 4's got to play the conference championship, so that's a postseason game. So if you make it to everybody else would play 4, except the people that lose in the conference championship games. They're going to have to play 5. So my question is this. If Alabama's got 2 losses at the end of the year, and just say they're ranked 8 or number 7, okay, and Georgia runs the table, they got to play at the Dome. It's a rematch, okay. Would you just rather Alabama to host the game, first-round playoff, and not make the conference championship, or go lose and possibly missing the championship games, the playoffs?
Gosh, Jim, I don't even know. I'd have to. I probably just can't answer that off the cuff. I'd want to look at the bracket and
yeah. Well, as it stands right now, and the reason I'm saying as it stands right now, if Alabama was ranked where they are right now, and it makes conference championship game instead of playing say somewhere like Georgia or Texas, they'd be hosting Clemson.
Yeah.
So it'd be bad. Hey, do you want to go to the Dome and play Georgia? All right, or you want to host.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I guess my gut instinct for me is, regardless of what the path to get you there is, I would still rather have that first playoff bye and then know I was at home.
Well, you're not going to be at home.
But I'd still rather have the bye. I'd still rather have a bye. I'd rather be guaranteed that I'm on to the next round. Now, maybe from a standpoint of being able to host a game for your fans and all that, but I just my gut check is, first of all, you know how I feel. You've listened to my show. You know how I feel about winning the conference championship. Despite what other people say, I think it's a big deal. I think it's a big deal to win the SEC championship. So I'd like for the team that I cover to have a chance to win an SEC title, number one. Okay, I think it's a big deal. I hate that it's been diminished and people talk about last year, like it's not a big deal to win the SEC championship when I think it is. So I would rather see the team that I cover play for the SEC championship, number one. Number two, I'd still rather get a bye. But that's just me. Okay. And maybe if I looked at it closer like you're doing and thought about the fact to host a home game and all of that, I might change my mind. But right now, just off the cuff, okay. I'd rather be in Atlanta playing for the SEC title win the SEC title, and then have the bye. That would be my
Okay. My next question would be: ask New England Patriots when they undefeated and lost to 10-6 New York in the Super Bowl, what they would rather have had. Just,
Well, I think they'd rather had the path. I think they'd rather had the path that they had and just finish off against the Giants. I don't think they would change.
Yeah, if they'd won it all. But what I'm saying, the bottom line is the prize is the last game.
It is. I don't disagree with you, and it's good. And it's more so. You're right. It's more so like that now with the expanded playoff, and when it gets to 16 teams. Chase, those phones are ringing crazy. When it gets to 16 teams, it'll even be more so like that. So no, I don't disagree with your premise at all, Jim. I'm just saying for me.
Well, you're bored, yeah.
I still like playing for a conference championship. That's all that I think. Last year, Alabama, even though they didn't get to the final game, making the playoff, but winning the SEC title, to me, that was the 9th SEC championship for Nick Saban. I still just think that's a big deal. But you're right. It's going to be. It's going to be less and less important, just like the NCAA basketball tournament. You're right. If you win a conference championship and you don't go anywhere in the tournament, nobody remembers that. Everybody remembers Alabama went to the Final Four this year and doesn't remember that they finished, like 7th in the SEC regular season standings. So you're right. I mean, that's probably where we're headed with this. But I'm just saying, as of right now, I still would like to make it to Atlanta and play for the SEC title.
All right, man. Y'all have
but they may not very well do that. So the scenario for Alabama, if they get in, might be the one you're laying out, that they play that first game and hopefully get a chance to host it. All right, man. Thanks.
Yeah. All right, man. All
right. We're going to go ahead and take our break. And when we come back on the other side, we're going to be joined by Tom. And more phone calls are welcome as well, 205-342-9904. We've got Matt Coulter on NASCAR coming up. As I said, also, we're going to have some Shane Beamer audio, the South Carolina head coach. And Chase did a good job of pulling the Clark Lee press conference and clipping it up for us so I can pick out the clips that I want. And that way it's we can just hear the clips that we want. But his press conference this week, as you might imagine, even though they're playing Kentucky, it was still most of the questions and comments were about the Alabama game. So really interesting stuff that we'll get to. Some other stuff that is making news. I'll touch on some headlines when we come back on the other side. But Tom will be up next on the other side. This is the Gary Harris Show on Tide 100.9 FM and 1230 AM WTBC, your home for Alabama sports.
On the Tuscaloosa thread.
Good Wednesday morning. ABC 3340 Chief Meteorologist James Spann is telling us Hurricane Milton is forecast to make landfall overnight along the Florida Peninsula and leave catastrophic destruction from the west to the east coast. He also adds there is a significant tornado threat across the central portion of that state. Alabama response teams are pre-deployed in the area to go into action once Milton has cleared the state. Click TuscaloosaThread.com for more local news, sports, and weather. Don Hartley, Town Square Media, Tuscaloosa.
As Innisfree has evolved, it will always be that place to escape and have a good time. Whether it's for a game day weekend, to reminisce on college days, or to create new memories, if you're looking for a good time, there's only one thing to do. Head to the Free at 1925 University Boulevard. And don't forget about the Lucky Lunch Meat and 3 special. Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. until 2 p.m. Get a meat and 3 vegetables for just $8.49. Or for a lighter appetite, try the Lucky Lunch soup, salad, or sandwich combo. I'll see you at the Free. 2011, Billy's Sports Grill, located on Main Avenue in historic downtown Northport, has been serving their legendary signature chicken sandwich, award-winning wings, and handcrafted cocktails. Billy's is also the spot to watch all your favorite sporting events with big screen, high-definition televisions, both dining rooms, at the bar, and outside on the beautiful patio. Come by and say hello to Kim and Lisa, the Billy's Management Dream Team. Billy's, good food, good friends, and good time.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
It's a dry forecast through the weekend. Lots of sunshine today, the high 83. Clear tonight, the low 57. For tomorrow and Friday, the sky's sunny both days. Highs between 78 and 81. And Saturday, sunny with a high at 81. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 65 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
You're listening to The Gary Harris Show.
Goal line in, touchdown, Alabama.
On your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9. And streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
All right, 9:21. Welcome back into the Gary Harris Show. We're going to jump back out on the Pinnacle Park hotline and welcome in Tom. Hey, Tom. Good morning.
Hey, Gary. How are you this morning?
Doing well.
Good. You know, listening to your conversation with the previous caller provoked me into thinking, you know, Gary, this next 3 to 4 weeks it's going to be fascinating in college football.
Yeah,
Don't you agree?
Yes, absolutely.
You're going to have chaos and topsy-turvy and all that kind of stuff going into the pot of the recipe that's going to make the dish of the college football playoff. And I tell you what, I think that they are going to get, and this is going to be the first year of it, but they're going to get exactly what they were shooting for, and that's along with parity. They're going to get a very entertaining mix of playoff games, don't you think?
I do. I do. I think everything you said is true. I think the next 3 or 4 weeks. And listen, it's just like I was talking about with Jim. I think he's right. I think ultimately,
Jim got me to think that.
Yeah, I think he's 100% right. That's where we're headed, especially after we go from 12 to 16, which we will. But for me now, still, I do the same thing in basketball. I want to. I was thrilled Alabama got the Final Four. I still want to try to win conference championships. I still think they're important. But the grand scheme of things, the way people view the playoff, much like in basketball, it's going to be more about what did you do in the playoff. In other words, if you run through your season and you're 12-0 and you win the SEC championship, then you get in your first playoff game and you get beat. That's what people are going to remember, So, but you're right too. And listen, we don't really know. I keep thinking, we keep saying, well, if Alabama loses another game, are they out? Based on we don't really know because we don't know what, we've already got the SEC's only got one undefeated team.
Sure, you go know with the last game of the season.
That's Texas. We might not have a single undefeated team in the league. We might have. We might have a bunch of 2-loss teams. We might have, the way this is going now, it does feel like, as I said, the NFL, where every Saturday you could lose or win, and these games go down to the wire. It's a bounce of the ball here or there. I mean, you might be sitting here at 9-3 and have a really good case for the playoff. I mean,
that's right.
So. Yeah, I agree. It's going to be crazy this next few weeks. I mean, it's like with Alabama. First of all, I don't think, you have to be realistic now about where you're at in this league. Every team does. And I'm not just saying Alabama, even Texas. They're riding high right now. But, who knows? Maybe OU's got something for them. But there's just no guaranteed win on Saturday. I think the assumption now is when Alabama's going to come back and Alabama's going to come back after that loss to Vanderbilt. I keep hearing how they're going to be focused now and ready to go and circle the wagons. Well, why didn't they do all that before they lost? I mean, why weren't they ready to go and focused and circling the wagons when they went to Vanderbilt? So
exactly.
You still got to go out and play.
They should have been thinking, like, if we go up here and lose, you know what? We're going to you should have circled the wagons when you went up there because I'm telling you, you're exactly right. Anybody can beat any. This transfer portal has created parity. I don't care what nobody
has, more so than I had imagined. And Vanderbilt was able to go out and get 53 players.
Yes.
They got a quarterback. They got a few coaches from another program. Imagine this. Imagine if all those coaches, Kill and Beck and Diego Pavia had stayed at New Mexico State. New Mexico State would probably have a heck of a football team.
You're exactly right. How about this one? Vandy not only went and got a quarterback, they went and got a system.
Yeah, they did. They sure did.
And it paid off, I'd say. But I believe this, Gary. I believe Kentucky will hammer their rear end this weekend. And the reason I believe it is because Kentucky's got a great front line defense.
Yeah, better than Alabama's. I don't think there's any doubt about it. I'm with you. I think defensively up front, and that to me is still the biggest drop off from what Alabama used to be. Is they're just not dominant up front anymore. And somebody pointed out on Whip and Barry's show, I do think Quentin Williams was the last first-round draft pick on the defensive line for Alabama. And these players they're good players, but they're not dominant players. They're not wearing people out. Now Will Anderson was a first-round draft pick, obviously number 3 overall, but he was also a edge guy. So the interior defensive line of Alabama is not what it once was, and really you could say right now the edge players aren't what they once were. And if you're not,
let me ask you this on that. I don't think anybody, LSU notoriously has had great defensive linemen. They don't even have them anymore.
Yeah, they're harder to find.
I think so too.
There's no doubt. I think
the reason I think so is because the run game has evolved and it's different up front anymore. And I think you need to look into that and investigate it and tell me, am I correct about that?
Well, it's changed. I still think you mentioned Kentucky. I think they're really good up front on defense. I still think Georgia's really good up front on defense. They had a couple, they've been battling some injuries. And I think Alabama's good. I just don't, the thing that disappoints me about Alabama is we've seen it in the last 2 games. You keep just wanting to see one of those defensive linemen just destroy a blocker and blow up a play, and it just not happening much. That's why you can't get off the field on 3rd down, is because you're allowing the quarterback to have time to throw, or giving them running lanes. You're just they're not blowing anything up. It's like on that 4th and 1, man. I mean, you got 5 guys on the line of scrimmage. You got a couple of linebackers that are kind of coming across as well. And nobody got to the kid. He had time to do the play action fake, drop back, and throw it, down the field 40-something yards and in the air, and that was really the touchdown that broke the camel's back. So interesting.
Thanks, Gary.
Thanks, Tom. All right, let's keep it rolling. We're going to get to another one of our good callers, Philip. Good morning, Philip.
Yeah, Gary, I just want to sort of patch in right there with what Tom was talking about. The rough and tumble the next 4 weeks are about to happen, because they're 30 by my count. If you look at all the conferences and the non-power conferences like Boise State and the Army and the Navy and all them, they're about 30. There are 36 teams that are either undefeated or have one loss that are legitimately in this thing, and I'm including in that. Right now, you're undefeated Army and you're undefeated Navy. Now the wheels may come off, but if you have to look at schedules going forward and who might can manage to do what and to win and or lose or whatever. And there's some teams out there that have just amazingly great shots at getting into the the final 12 that back in May and June we didn't even consider.
That's right.
Like BYU. Colorado has a huge game this weekend against Kansas State. Whoever wins that game is looking pretty good right now. Now things can change and things will get tough, but that is a hugely critical game. And Notre Dame, another team that would be a great TV viewing generator if they were to get in. So there's so many teams right now that have a shot at it with one loss, but we are beginning to get into the territory now where there are going to be some 2-loss teams, and that's going to start in this conference this weekend with LSU and Ole Miss. And like you say, I still think we're drinking that Vanderbilt bourbon still in Tuscaloosa right now. They've got to draw the curtain on that loss and move forward, because South Carolina's going to come in with a plan.
Absolutely.
And they know physically that they might can exert their plan.
Well, also, they're going to take notes off what Vanderbilt did, because, listen, South Carolina's got 2 dual-threat quarterbacks, and they're going to run. Yeah. They're going to run some of the same stuff that Vanderbilt did. They're going to cherry pick, and they're going to give you some trouble with quarterback runs. And then, right. The one kid, Ashford from Hoover, is not much of a thrower, but the other kid is. And so, yeah, I'm with you. I think right now for Alabama, the goal is just to win the game. This worrying about, are they going to come back and blow them out and all that? Win the game. I mean, I think that win the game. You got to kind of, if you're an Alabama fan right now, you can say all you want about how good you looked in the first half against Georgia, and it was impressive, but you barely won the game. You hung on. Yeah. Well, you came back to win it, and then had to hang on at the end again. I give Xavier Brown a ton of credit. What a play. But I don't know why Georgia felt like they had to go to the end zone right there anyway. I think they still had 2 timeouts. I thought they were about to win the game, and I think they might have won the game. But for Alabama, you barely win that game, although Georgia's a really good team, and then you go to Vanderbilt and you never have the lead. I think coming home to South Carolina, the goal is just to win the game. I mean, I'm not sitting here thinking about they're going to cover the 21 or whatever. Win the game. I think you're right. You have to, and Tom's right, and Jim's right. I think you have to look at things differently now in regards to your expectations. It's just, Jim is right. It's the goal is just to get in the playoff. That's the deal. And I would like to win the SEC championship. I'd like to play in Atlanta. I think that's a great, great accomplishment. But the goal is to be one of those 12. And then you know what? Right. If you're holding up the trophy at the end of the season, nobody's going to care that you didn't win the SEC. I do agree with that.
Nobody's going to care. Well, and that's the thing about it is the leverageability, and that's a new word that I made up that Alabama lost by losing to Vanderbilt is pretty big because the leverage now is really tight for Alabama. So they've got to basically, you know, I don't want to use the word win out, but they've got to be thinking that in those terms because 18 years ago, I used to get aggravated with Shula in his post-game remark after a heartbreaking loss, and he would always use the phrase, "We're this close, we're close, we're this close." And I used to say to my brother, I said, "Hell, you know, we're not playing for a playoff spot, you know." But now we are. Now we are.
That's right. All right, Philip, great call, man.
Thank y'all.
Thank you. All right, we got to get to break. We're going to come back with Matt Coulter on NASCAR. We'll do that next. Real quickly, though, too, Curtis texted me on social media about A&M being undefeated in the league. I was talking about undefeated overall. I was talking more in terms of the playoff picture with undefeated teams. But, yeah, A&M doesn't have a loss in the league, but they do have a loss. So, LSU doesn't have a loss in the league. I'm pretty sure they haven't lost a league game. So I'm talking about it overall, big picture. There's only one undefeated team in the SEC, and that's Texas. Everybody else has at least a loss. But there are some teams in the SEC that don't have a conference loss. All right, we'll be back with Matt Coulter on NASCAR next.
Not to brag. Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
It's a dry forecast through the weekend. Lots of sunshine today, the high 83. Clear tonight, the low 57. For tomorrow and Friday, the sky's sunny both days. Highs between 78 and 81. And Saturday, sunny with a high at 81. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 65 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
The best place for your high school football coverage is right here on Tide 100.9 and online on Tide100.9.com.
All right, 9:36, and it's time for Matt Coulter on NASCAR as we break away from the football for a couple of minutes, although I'm sure I'll ask Matt about his thoughts on Alabama Vanderbilt as well. But we're going to lead off, of course, talking about this crazy NASCAR playoffs and more guys from that aren't in the playoff are winning races. We had the big one at Talladega. We've got a Roval that's going to be the cutoff of the 12 guys left to cut down to 8. So there's a lot of anxiety and stress going on. Good morning, Matt.
Hello, Gary. How are you? Hey, Chase. Hello, Tide fam.
Doing well, and let's start with what we saw this past Sunday at Talladega, the Yellowwood 500. You know, it had been a fast race, had been a pretty clean race for the most part, and then, boy, right there when we were getting ready for what looked like it was going to be a great finish, we got the big one and then some, man. I mean, we got 20-something cars taken out. We'll get to who benefited from it in a moment, but some really top guys, playoff contenders, bit it bad when Keselowski. You had the Fords on the inside, you had Chevrolets on the outside. Keselowski got a run. Cindric was probably maybe got separated too much. I don't know, but Keselowski got a run and didn't square up the bumper, and boom, there we went.
Yeah, they just went a spinning. 28 cars involved in that incident. That is the largest number at Talladega. And later I found out that's the largest number of cars involved in an accident in NASCAR history.
It makes sense. That's a lot of cars.
Yeah, I was joking, and I said, man, that looks like Ricky Bobby. And you remember at the end of the race how many of those guys were spinning out? But I was real impressed with the Penske ride. Cindric had the best car early. Unfortunately for our picks, they were involved in accidents. And then it came down, I thought, just to a two-pony race. I thought it was going to be Keselowski and Stenhouse Jr. But no, the other cars that were still on the lead lap, still competitive, they made a great dash to the finish. It was 3 wide, and Stenhouse ended up winning by 6 1/1000ths of a second. That's a close race. And all in all, I don't hate the term boring when you're going 200 miles an hour, but it was a pretty, calm race. They had the early accidents, took out some of our guys, and then that one at the end. But I liked it. I liked it when they run a lot under green.
You had Blaney and I had Logano and of course Cindric was leading. The Penske cars, as we thought, were really, really, really strong. And I think if they got to run that thing without incident, one of the Penske cars would have won it. I really do. Ryan Blaney not happy at all with Christopher Bell, and made that clear afterwards. And Bell admitted that it was his fault, but you're seeing a lot of that. You're seeing a lot of. There's one thing in the past when old school drivers would take you out, but they would, you know their intentions. We're having a lot of situations now where good drivers, guys that you consider to be elite drivers, are messing up in these races. And it's not just Christopher Bell. We've seen it with other ones. And why is that happening so much?
That's a good question. And I'll give you an answer here, and then you fire what you think back. But all the cars are so equal. And we've talked about this as far as there being more accidents and so forth. But the cars are so equal, and these guys are so good that the mistakes, when made, are so magnified. And I think that's what's happening now. And also, I'm not sure we talk about pressure. These guys and these teams are under immense pressure to win races, to satisfy the owner, the chairman of the board, and make the playoffs. And here's the one: keep your sponsors. And when you got guys like Stuart Haas that are just pulling out of the board, there's a lot of dicing around, drivers looking for jobs. So I think it's just more competitive than it has been in the past.
And let me correct myself. I said Christopher Bell. It was Bowman. It was Alex Bowman that took out Blaney. I want to make sure I'm clear on that. But another top driver. But it was not Bell. It was Bowman, and Blaney was not happy with him at all. He said basically he wrecked the blank out of me. Was his terminology. So that's been happening a lot this year. But at the end of the day, Matt, it was an exciting finish. And even though there were a lot of people on social media blaming Keselowski for the wreck, I don't know. He had a chance to win that race, and then he didn't. And you had, and of course, Keselowski's out of the playoffs now anyway, but he was initially a playoff driver. And Ricky Stenhouse Jr., who doesn't win a lot of races, but if he's going to win one, buddy, it's usually going to be at Talladega or at Daytona, and he got the victory. So another non-playoff driver wins a race, and I think I'll continue to say this. I think it's a bad look for NASCAR.
I don't like it, but I don't dislike it. I just think we need a change, right? And I will not be the first one to throw up my arm and say I've got the answer. Do you? What are we
No, I don't have the answer. And I know right now I do think somehow there's going to be some type of tweaking after this season, because I think a lot of the playoff drivers are very frustrated in that they feel they have to drive a different kind of race. And as you and I have talked about for many years, of course, the playoffs weren't as long either. I think that's got a lot something to do with it. You're running a lot of races that are playoff races with a lot of more playoff drivers, and so it only makes sense that non-playoff drivers are going to continue to compete. The last race of the year, I do think it'll be different. Once you get down to those final four, I think more of these guys will drive a little bit differently. But for right now, it's like we've talked about. Kyle Busch said it going into the playoffs. I'm going to try to win a race. And the rest of these guys have taken that, and then they can take chances that other guys can't. And it seems like the guys, the playoff drivers, are trying to be a little more careful, are the ones that are getting taken out every week.
Well, and I had a chance to interview a couple of drivers just to talk about the playoff format in general, and because there's a view that some of the guys that are in the playoffs are more conservative now because, sure, they want to win, but they don't want to lose points. They don't want to get caught up in that 28-car wreck.
That's right.
And none of them would admit it to me, but, and I'm not putting words in their mouth. This is just my feeling. but I sense that they really are. And that allows the non-playoff drivers to be as a great. You just said it. You know, Katie bars the door. They'll drive their tires off, whereas these guys might be, off the pedal a little bit. So it makes for very, very interesting races. I'm just not sure it makes for an interesting way to earn the championship.
I'm with you. All right, let's recap Talladega from just the week standpoint. No weather issues, and if anything, it was hot on Sunday. It wasn't a cool day. It was a summer type day, but the week overall, Matt, you were there all week. How did it go? Was track officials happy and pleased with all, not just the Cup Series race, but all of the different races and different events?
I think that it was an A, maybe even an A+ weekend. And you start with what you just mentioned, the weather. But it was. I'm down there at the start-finish line on that asphalt. It was summer sweat. But you'd rather have that than the rain we've had to deal with in the last couple of races. But when you put three races, the Craftsman Truck Series, Xfinity, and then the Cup Series on Sunday together in what I kind of figured out, you got three races in about 52 hours. That's a load. And NASCAR, and particularly our Talladega family, worked their butts off to make sure that it's just such a fan-friendly race, and they succeeded. And I'll bubble on obnoxiously here, but man, I love those people. You know, Brian Crichton and Jenna Pritchard, and I'll leave some out. Everybody down to the security and the people that are taking your tickets, whatever, scanning them. They just worked their butts off to make it a great fan experience, and they succeeded again this weekend.
All right, we move on to the Bank of America Roval 400 at Charlotte Motor Speedway road course, and I think you and I are both in agreement that the cut down race to 8 being a Roval is not. We're not a fan of it, especially when you're sitting there at an iconic track and you want to make a road course out of it. I don't get it, but it is what it is. And you look at the top 8 right now that are trying to advance. Some huge names: Byron, Bell, Larson, Hamlin, Bowman, Blaney, Reddick, and Elliott. Logano, defending champion, 2-time champion, is on the outside looking in right now, along with Suarez, Logano's teammate Cindric, who both were in position to get a win. And then Briscoe is pulling up the rear. So I guess the name that we're watching there is Logano, as he tries to he has no margin for error now to try to get to the final 8.
No, what a strange position for him to be in. Boy, he'll run the wheels off that Ford this weekend.
Yeah, he will.
I expect him to figure out a way to make the playoffs, but I agree with you on the Roval thing. We got a road course. Let's leave it at 1. It's just my opinion, you know.
No, I'm in agreement with you 100%. Especially
Charlotte.
You go to Charlotte. If you go to Charlotte, let's run the racetrack. Let's run the racetrack at Charlotte. You know.
But I don't know. Powers that be think that this is a better way, and who knows? Maybe it does attract more fans. I don't know.
Well,
but just a quick check in on the track.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. Track report. Yeah.
It's part of the oval. You know, a lot of the track is what they normally race on.
That's why it's a oval. Yeah.
Yeah, and they've carved some road track turns into the infield. By the way, Talladega had that many, many years ago. You can still see some of the track, but it wasn't used very often. You know that Talladega was also a Harley-Davidson test facility for many, many years? There's just a fun fact to throw out there. But it's 2.28 miles asphalt, and it's got 17 turns. And it's interesting races. I'll watch it. But you see these guys like SVG and A.J. Allmendinger that now, when you're looking at the Vegas odds, they're in the top where you wouldn't pick them to win Talladega. Although James Van Gisbergen, he led Talladega. And he'll be full ride next year. So I'm looking forward to seeing him. So there's your report on what's going to happen Sunday. 1:00 kickoff.
I get to lead off this week, and we've only got last year to go off of, and Allmendinger got the win. Last week I said Penske was going to be strong. Hendrick is going to be really strong here. That's my inclination, and so I'm looking at William Byron. I'm looking at Bowman. I'm looking at Elliott, and my pick is going to be one of those three. I think this week you're going to have a playoff driver win, and I think it's going to be from the Hendrick Motorsports team. So now I've got to decide, which one. We just keep thinking Elliott is going to turn that corner. Yeah. But it has not happened the way I thought it would. I'm going to go with William Byron here. He finished second last year. He's a top guy, and I guess the one downside is that he's already advanced into the round of 8. So you wonder, what his mindset is. But knowing he's advanced, I think he's going to go. He's going to go out to win the race. So I'm going to pick William Byron.
That's a good pick. And he has run very well in the playoffs. Hadn't won in this segment, but man, he's got points. He's got a significant points lead when it comes to this point in the season. So I think that's a good pick. But I'm going to continue with the trend of non-playoff drivers winning. I'm going to go with Shane Van Gisbergen. He's just a little bit above the other NASCAR drivers when it comes to road courses. So we'll see. And I need a win. Some might call that a little bit of a Hail Mary shot, but Vegas doesn't. He's odds on. So anyway, let me take the Kiwi and we'll see what happens.
All right. Sounds like a plan. All right, Matt, before we turn you loose, even though you were busy at the track, I get it. I'm sure you were as stunned as everybody else when that result from Nashville came in. Alabama and Vanderbilt 40-35, the Commodores. And not only they win the game for the first time in 40 years against the Tide, been longer than that since they won in Nashville. First time in 23 games. I think that was the longest streak in the SEC that one team has over another team. But they scored 40 points and just took the air out of the ball against Alabama. I mean, they controlled the football game. What was your reaction?
I was really stunned. I expected Vandy to really put up a good fight in the first half, and Alabama pull away and win by 20 at the end of the game. But just before I start throwing darts anywhere, way to go, Vandy. And the way they physically dominated Alabama's defensive front, and what did they hold the ball for 40 minutes?
Yeah, they did.
Do you do that against Alabama?
Well, you do now. I mean, when the defense can't get off the field. I mean, and we saw it in the second half of the Georgia game, although those were mainly fourth downs. This defense right now has got some questions, more questions than answers, and we'll see what happens against South Carolina. But they just, it was epitomized by the end of the game. They score, Bama does, to make it 40-35 with still like 2:40 to go in the game, 3 timeouts and a 2-minute timeout. They decided to kick it deep, which I wouldn't have done. I'd have gone for the onside. And then Alabama never got the ball back, and Vandy was able to take a knee, which to me is the ultimate in-your-face.
Wow.
When you had to get a stop with everything on the line, you couldn't do it.
Well, they were gassed. They were gassed for one thing.
Well, it's their own fault. I keep hearing about, the offense needs to, run the ball better. The offense's job is to score. You try to score. I mean, you get tired, and then the special teams fiasco where they had the illegal participation after one of the rare stops the defense did get. Then they had to go right back out there, but that's still not on the offense. I mean, the offense is trying to score points. I mean, if you're tired, get off the field. Get over and get you some rest.
Well, they put 35 on the board.
That's what I'm saying. 35 points in 17 minutes plus possession time.
Yeah.
So.
And, I don't know what made me think, because the Xfinity race had ended that point. I did get to watch a little. I guess that was my silver lining, is that I was working a Xfinity race, and I didn't get to see a lot of it. But I got to see the end, and, it was just amazing to me Alabama couldn't get. That's Alabama. They couldn't get the stop on that with 2:40 left. And Vandy was just doing the same thing they'd done since the kickoff, the opening kick. And
yeah,
they whipped Alabama, and then There's no other way to put that.
No, they did, and like I said, and let's be clear on this. Nobody's made any excuses. I mean, in fact, Vandy has been praised up and down, one end of this planet to the other. Nobody. I mean, I've never seen a team that's been given more glory. So let's see what they do with it. I've seen a lot. Alabama's been beaten before, been upset before. Most of these teams that upset Alabama, you know what? I don't ever see them in Atlanta. So we'll see. We'll see if Vanderbilt can do anything with this. My suspicion is they'll go to Lexington on Saturday night and get it handed to them. Because everybody now is they're back. It's one game. I give them all the credit in the world, but let's see what they do with it going forward.
Well, and there are a lot of teams like that are, other than Texas, really, that play really, really well one week and the next week they're not. So.
Yeah. So it's a grind, and we'll also have to see what Alabama does. I mean, I'm hearing a lot of people talking about, are they going to blow out South Carolina? They better be focused on trying to win the game. I think in the new SEC and the new world of college football, it's a lot like the NFL, Matt. Every week it's any given Saturday now, and you better not look at the brands anymore. You better be going out there and ready to play a football game. So, all right, brother,
that's exactly what you got to do. Thank you. Appreciate you having me on. Love doing the show. See you, Gary.
Thanks, Matt. We got to get to the break and come back and wrap up this first hour right after this.
Colony Golf Course is an 18-hole championship layout designed by 1976 U.S. Open champion Jerry Pate. Director of Golf John Gray and fitting specialist Bob Montgomery are PGA certified. Mike Shivitz is the head professional and director of the Tuscaloosa Junior Golf Program. Call today to secure a tee time at the Tuscaloosa Championship Golf Course. Everyone can play. 205-562-3201. Old Colony is operated by Para.
Life doesn't wait for when your finances are in perfect order. It just happens. But no matter what surprises come your way, Alabama Credit Union will be here to help make it affordable with great personal loans, mortgages, and auto loans. They offer an easy application process and fast decisions so you can stay focused on feeling good about whatever life brings your way. Alabama Credit Union will be here to help make it affordable with great personal loans, mortgages, and auto loans. Alabama Credit Union, loans for real life. Visit alabamacu.com to learn more. Some rules and restrictions apply. See if you're eligible for membership, then join today and feel good about your money.
Los Tarascos has been serving Mexican favorites like burritos, fajitas, and quesadillas since 1999. Their new location is at 4100 Owen Parkway in Northport. And, of course, you can find Los Tarascos in Tuscaloosa at 110 Skyland Boulevard. The bar areas feature big screen television so you can enjoy your favorite sporting events. Los Tarascos features daily happy hour specials. And for the best Mexican cuisine in West Alabama, remember, the name is Los Tarascos with locations in Tuscaloosa and Northport.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
It's a dry forecast through the weekend. Lots of sunshine today, the high 83. Clear tonight, the low 57. For tomorrow and Friday, the sky sunny both days. Highs between 78 and 81. And Saturday, sunny with a high at 81. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 64 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
Covering University of Alabama sports, as well as the national and local scene as well. The Gary Harris Show, only on Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
All right, 9:58. That's going to wrap it up for hour number one. It's been brought to you by Alabama Credit Union. Hour number two, we're going to visit with Larry the Music Man at 10:30. Plenty of more football. We're going to hear from Clark Lee, Vanderbilt head coach, and also from Shane Beamer, South Carolina head coach. And I'm also going to talk about how this parity is impacting the FCS schools as well as we get with the second hour. There was an interesting game that flew completely under the radar this past Saturday. While we were focused on FBS and SEC, there was an FCS game that was an attention grabber as well as to how you got to be ready to play every week. I'll explain that coming up in the second hour of the Gary Harris Show.
WTBC Tuscaloosa and W265CG Tuscaloosa, a Town Square media station. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
From the Fox Sports Studios in Los Angeles, here's Kevin Wyatt.
Some NFL injury notes. The Houston Texans are placing wide receiver Nico Collins on injured reserve because of his hamstring injury. So he will be out for at least 4 games. The Jacksonville Jaguars have designated cornerback Tyson Campbell to return off of injured reserve, so his practice window is now open. And in NBA news, ESPN is saying that Dallas Mavericks guard Dante Exum is expected to miss 3 months after undergoing right wrist surgery. So it's going to be an extended loss for the Mavericks backcourt as the season is about to begin. Former Jets head coach Robert Saleh issuing a statement thanking the players, fans, organization, and ending it saying, quote, with all gas, no brakes, unquote.
It's the Tide 100.9 30K workday payday. Woo! Win cash every weekday 8 to 5. Here's this hour's cash code.
660. Again, that's 660. The code is 660.
Enter that code now on the Tide 100.9 app. Click on the 30K payday button and enter the code for a chance to win $30,000. The Gary Harris Show. UCM host Tider Insider TV, Crimson Tide Kickoff, play-by-play for Alabama sports, and sports director for WVUA 23. It's time for the Gary Harris Show on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Hour number 2 of the Gary Harris Show is on the air here on Tide 100.9 FM and 1230 AM WTBC. The number for the Pinnacle Park at North River Hotline is 205-342-9904 if you want to join us. In just a moment, I'm going to explain how the parity impacts more than just the major conferences in the FBS. But right now, we're going to jump out on the hotline, and Greg over in Birmingham is with us. Hey, good morning, Greg.
Hey, good morning, Gary. How are you doing?
Doing well.
You ever been a football coach?
I have not.
All right, I'm going to let you be one for Saturday. All right, during the South Carolina game, Alabama wins the toss. What do you do?
Well, I'm probably, based on what I've seen, I'm going to do what they won't do. If they win it, I'm going to take the football.
Exactly. That's what we got to do.
But I guarantee if they win the toss, they're going to defer.
You can't do that, though, Gary. That gives them all the momentum and the possibility of being up, just like we did last weekend.
Yeah.
We should have took the football first.
I agree. I mean, that's just become – used to, that's what you did. Used to, you wanted the ball to go out and make a statement. But now what they want to do is it's all the analytics say, well, you know what? You kick first, you get a stop, and then you get the ball coming out in the third quarter. You know, you get an extra possession is the way they look at it. The problem is if the team goes 75 yards for a touchdown against you, you're in the hole right off the bat. So if you're going to defer, you better get a stop.
Got the momentum.
Yeah. I mean, I'm with you. I think if I look at Alabama's team, and right now, to me, the offense is ahead of the defense. I'm wanting the ball. I mean, Georgia deferred, and Alabama, took it right down the field and scored like Vanderbilt did and set the tone in that game.
That's right.
But I can't guarantee you. My feeling is if Alabama wins the toss, they'll defer to the third quarter. That's just my feeling.
Hey, look, one other question. I'll let you go. Texas has got to go to Vanderbilt the weekend after the Georgia game. And then Vanderbilt's got, Tennessee at the very end of the season, and then they got to go to Auburn. And they got to go to LSU. Out of those 4 games, how many of those you think Vanderbilt can possibly win?
All right, hold on a second. Give them to me one more time, Greg.
All right. Texas plays Vanderbilt.
Texas is going to beat them. All right, go on to the next one.
Okay. They go to LSU at Baton Rouge.
LSU's going to beat them. Go to the next one.
All right, they go to Auburn.
They could win that one. That would be the one. What was the other one?
Tennessee comes to Vanderbilt.
Tennessee's going to beat them. I would say their best chance out of those 4 to get a win would be at Auburn.
Okay.
I mean, I'm giving Vandy all the glory like everybody else has, but I'm not going to crown them an SEC contender because they beat an Alabama team that wasn't prepared and obviously took them for granted and overlooked them, and it was a great win for them, but they still lost to Georgia State, and they're going to lose some more games. I give them a lot of credit. It's a big win, biggest win in their history, but now nobody is going to – there's no chance that anybody else is going to take them lightly. One thing Alabama did, too, in addition to losing the game, is they gave every other coach in this league a perfect example of what can happen week to week. Alabama is the guinea pig now because they went up to Vanderbilt and got their rear ends kicked. And so now every coach in this league is saying, see, this is what can happen. And so it's going to be harder to catch. Now, if Vanderbilt's good enough, they may, like I said, I definitely think they could win at Auburn. But I don't see them beating Tennessee, Texas, or LSU.
All right. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, Greg. Good call. All right. My example now of what I was talking about with, we're focused on the FBS and the SEC, but parity is everywhere. You folks that follow college football are familiar with James Madison, really good FCS program in the Sun Belt that hung 70 points on North Carolina earlier this year. And they were 4-0. They had hung 70 on North Carolina, and the very next week hung 63 on Ball State. That's 133 points in 2 games, including, again, I'll say it's 70, and that was at North Carolina. That was at Chapel Hill. Well, they go this past Saturday night. You know where they played a football game? Monroe, Louisiana, against the UL Monroe Warhawks. And you know what happened? They scored 19 points and got beat. All right, now let that sink in for a minute. They got beat as one of the dominant programs in FCS by a team that last year was not good, was terrible. But you look at what can happen in college football, and it's not just the FCS. Brian Vincent, the head coach at ULM, first year, former offensive coordinator at UAB, former interim head coach, and a lot of people now feel like he should have gotten the permanent head coaching job, obviously, with what's happening with that program under Trent Dilfer. But ULM was a horrible team last year. Now, they're better this year. They beat UAB 32-6 head up. They'd beaten Jackson State. They had beaten Troy 13-9. Troy's not a great team. And, of course, they lost to top-ranked Texas in Austin 51-3. But on paper, James Madison was a clear-cut favorite over ULM. And ULM beat them. So it didn't get the recognition, obviously, that Vanderbilt over Alabama did. But it did offer another example of how parity is everywhere. That is a Sun Belt game where you would have looked at that game on paper and said, James Madison is going to roll over UL Monroe. And they didn't do it. And what does it do? It puts James Madison at 0-1 in the Sun Belt. Interesting stuff indeed. All right, let's do this. If you want to give us a call, 205-342-9904, more than welcome to call us on the Pinnacle Park at North River hotline, and we will get it in. But right now, before we get to Beamer, let's go ahead and run some of these Clark Lee clips that Chase has gotten, because as you might imagine, his press conference this week previewing Kentucky was a whole lot about Alabama. And his opening comments are about 3 minutes. So let's go ahead and go to number 4, Chase. His thoughts on how to build off the big win against Bama, because that's the key now for Vanderbilt. They do anything with this win. Here's Vanderbilt head coach Clark Lee talking about building off the win over the Tide.
We've talked about the idea that, and this was on Sunday again. So our process is we play the game, and no matter the result, we show up on Sunday, we unpack it, we talk about the lessons we pull from it, and then we turn the page. If it's a bad result, we obviously shift into the next mode. If it's a good result, we have players of the game and we kind of celebrate it, and then we shift into the next opponent. In the case of this past weekend, we took the time to celebrate some of the things that went well for us in the game, and then my message to them at the end is, let's not lose this as a meaningful, signpost or a marker as to where this program has come. Let's not diminish what it tells us about what we're capable of, but let's also be really clear that the meaning of this game as it relates to not the historical significance, but the significance to our season, we will only know at the end of the year when we look back. And what we need to focus on right now is how we leverage it and amplify it and allow it to build momentum for us. And that only happens if we shift focus right back into our process and commit further and go deeper and fight for more. And so that's kind of that's pretty much exactly the message. And they've responded really well to that. I mean, we don't live in a world of narratives. So it's about the control we have to perform the way that we want to perform and what we know to be true about what it takes to get there. And that's where we put our attention.
All right. He said all the right things there. And I agree with him 100%. And I like Clark Lea. And I like how thoughtful he is and the way he lays things out. Can his team do that? Like he said, we won't know. All right, here's an interesting, he was asked about, there was, apparently a lot of trash talking going on between Alabama and Vanderbilt in the game. And he was asked about trash talking in the game and, when it crosses the line, what's the difference between competition and when it becomes too much? Here's Clark Lea's response to that.
Well, if you've ever played pickup basketball with me, you'd know that I like to talk some trash too sometimes. So, I think what I tell the guys, and I didn't notice it, to be honest with you, Billy. I didn't notice it as anything extra than it normally is. But what I tell our players is that I never want them to offload their energy or give their energy to the opponent. And I understand that a part of the competitive moment, there is this kind of, you are engaged and there is a back and forth. And we talk about optimal zones here, so mental performance, like that being on edge and getting right up to the edge, but never going over. Because the minute you start to, again, offload power to the opponent, they get to dictate the energy on the field. And that's the point at which you let things bubble over and you become reactionary. So I don't mind guys, I want them always to respect the game, and I never want it to be something that creates an embarrassment for them or for us, but I'm totally okay with them being engaged in the competitive moment and all that means. But in terms of what our competitive mindset is, it's always staying within control of yourself, because we have to give our power and energy to our teammates. That's the most important thing to me. We cannot offload that. And once you hand it over to the other team, again, they get to dictate the terms to you, which is, anti-competitive.
We got to hit a break here in a minute. Let's get to one more clip, because I'm just interested in hearing this myself. He was asked about his thoughts on the officiating. Well, certainly he thought the officiating was pretty positive, because I didn't see any reason to complain if were Vanderbilt. I thought the couple of close calls that were questionable went against Alabama. But here's Clark Lea's thoughts on officiating in the Bama-Vandy game.
We did, yeah. And like all the things that we submit, there's varying levels of, both kind of confirmation and support, but also, the understanding that it's not always going to be perfectly seen or officiated. And, there was nothing there that stood out to me as negative. Our conference and the officiating and John, they do a great job of both where they feel like the official was right. They do a great job of explaining that to us, and where they feel like maybe there was a miss, they do a great job of explaining that too. And I just really respect them and respect the feedback we get, and we do that every week.
All right, I guess that was in regards to turning in some plays that they felt like were missed. All right, we got to get to the break. We'll try to come back. Again, phone lines are open in the next segment, 205-342-9904. May get back to a couple Clark Lea clips. We've also got Shane Beamer, the head coach of the upcoming opponent, South Carolina. And then at 10:30, we got Larry the Music Man. We'll be back with more of the Gary Harris Show. Before we get to that break, though, I do want to remind you that Bama football trivia is back on Friday. I'll be at Innisfree Irish Pub ahead of the South Carolina game, but we're back on Friday with Bama football trivia presented by T-Town Menswear and T-Town Gallery in the University Mall. Going to give away another fantastic prize, so you'll want to be ready for that. And a reminder for the best in menswear, T-Town Menswear in the University Mall. And, of course, homecoming season is here. So if you're in the homecoming court or you want to dress up for the homecoming football game, see Tom and the folks there at T-Town Menswear and T-Town Gallery University Mall. We'll be right back after this.
The Junior League. If you haven't already, you've got to try Tuscaloosa's unique breakfast, brunch, and lunch concept. Brick and Spoon, downtown Tuscaloosa at Timerson Square. It's fresh food with a Cajun flair featuring a full bar with build-your-own Bloody Marys and mimosas. Open daily, 7 a.m. until 2 p.m. Available for after-hours events, rehearsal dinners, receptions, and birthdays. They offer brunch and lunch catering. Call Brick and Spoon at 205-345-5551 for more information.
Do you have a Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather?
It's a dry forecast through the weekend. Lots of sunshine today, the high 83. Clear tonight, the low 57. For tomorrow and Friday, the sky's sunny both days. Highs between 78 and 81. And Saturday, sunny with a high at 81. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 71 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
You're listening to the home of Alabama Crimson Tide Sports. Tide 100.9.
All right, welcome back into Gary Harris Show, 1021. Gary Harris, Chase Brumfeld. We're going to get back on one more clip I want to play from Clark Lea. And again, if you give us a phone call, we'll let you get through 205-342-9904. This again is kind of tied into what he talked about already on the response, but this is we talked about how to build off the big win versus Bama. This is his how they've handled things so far, just their response to winning that game, shocking the country. Clip number 3, Chase. Let's hear from Clark Lea.
Kind of responded to that.
Are you just saying in terms of just like the letdown being the potential letdown? Is that yeah, I mean, if I were to criticize the team earlier in the year, particularly in the Georgia State week, and I think I lingered on that, was just we didn't seem focused with as a coach and as a player. I think it's really important that you see the season as not like a bunch of like one-off exposures, but like truly a journey, and the totality of that journey is or I guess the success of that journey is really your ability to evolve as the year goes. So we learned a lesson, and that's, again, not to take anything away from what Georgia State did, but we learned a lesson as a team that week, which is if we're not intentional and purposeful and detailed in our process, we won't be intentional, purposeful, and detailed in our performance. And everything that I put in front of this team, they've attacked and challenged and are taking the challenge and grown from. So, sure, anytime you have either a emotional win or an emotional loss, you have the opportunity to drag that forward and to have it kind of stain the next week. And I think that can happen in either way. But the last 2 weeks, where coming off the Missouri game, which was really challenging to us, I saw a team that stepped right back in and really was intentional about their work. And certainly after Saturday, which was on the opposite end of that spectrum, I have a team that's stepped right back into the work. So we have to carry that through the week, and then we have to show up and be focused and detailed in performance. It's all challenging, and it's hard. It's what makes this really hard. But I'm not worried about where the team's mind is right now. They want more, and they're going to go after more. And they know that this climb only gets more challenging because we're not going to sneak up on anybody anymore. That's part of having a good performance, is you kind of show what you're capable of. So now it's out there, and we have to continue to level up because we're playing against really good teams, the first of which is Kentucky.
All right. I'm really impressed with Clark Lea and how he handles things. All right, let's get to a little bit of Shane Beamer, the upcoming opponent is South Carolina, and he's the head coach. He had his press conference, and he was asked point blank about the Vanderbilt game plan and what he believes they can take from that to exploit Alabama with what Vanderbilt had to do, exploit the Alabama defense. So here is Shane Beamer, clip number 2.
You see something there that maybe y'all can exploit?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that Vandy put on tape that, frankly, we do in the run game as well. So there's certain things. Now, you also got to say to yourself, okay, Vandy has some success against them doing this, so is Alabama going to line up the exact same way and do the same thing? You don't know, but we're going to be who we are and do what we do. But there's certainly, like any game, whether it be the Vanderbilt game or the Western Kentucky and South Florida games that they played this year, there's going to be things that we see on tape that we feel like have a chance to be successful, that fit us, that we'll implement. But certainly Vandy did a really good job of moving the ball. They did an awesome job of protecting the football. They did an awesome job of converting on third down. I think they were 12 of 18, David. So I'd like to copy that for sure, their ability to stay on the field and score points. But they had a really good plan. But I think the biggest thing is Vandy played really, really hard and really, really physical against them as well.
Yeah, he said a lot right there. Shane Beamer, you got to watch the South Carolina offense too. Their quarterbacks are both dual threat, and they have the ability to, with Rocket Sanders, to gouge you in the run game, and they're not going to be a pushover. Lenora Sellers and Robbie Ashford. Sellers is a better passer, but they're both big, physical runners as well. And, you remember Rocket Sanders from Arkansas, but he's a guy that weighs about 235 pounds, and he can get downhill, and he can run by you or he can run over you. So this is going to be another challenge for Alabama's defense right now. And they're going to need to tighten it up. And I think for many Alabama fans, this is going to be a huge barometer, a litmus test, if you will, of where Alabama is going to be headed defensively this season, because you're coming off a second half against Georgia where you absolutely, got handled. And then a game at Vanderbilt where you got out-physicaled and outplayed by a Vanderbilt offense that going into the game, not many people would have said Vanderbilt's offense is going to get the better of Alabama's defense, but they did. So not only are fans watching to see, adjustments in terms of, schematics maybe, but also just in terms of physicality, in terms of, can you handle their offensive line up front? Can you affect the quarterback? Can you turn them over? Which, Kane Womack has said a big part of Alabama's defense is turning people over. Well, they didn't turn Vanderbilt over. And so from what I'm hearing from him, if you're going to give up some plays, you better be able to make some plays. And it'll be interesting to see if they can do that against South Carolina. All right, we're going to get to the break. And before we do, I do want to remind you that Las Tarascos is open for lunch and dinner 7 days a week here in Tuscaloosa. You hear my commercial on the air, but they've got a third location now since I did that spot. They've got the one right here on Skyland Boulevard, the one in Northport, and also a new one downtown at Timerson Square in Tuscaloosa, that great Timerson Square area. So 3 locations for the best Mexican fare in Tuscaloosa. It's Las Tarascos. We'll be back with Larry the Music Man. Break away from sports for just a bit. Although, again, Larry's a big Bama fan, so I'm sure it'll come up. But we'll talk some music next here on the Gary Harris Show.
You see him on WVUA 23 covering sports and on Tider Insider TV on Tuesday nights. Don't miss a minute of the Gary Harris Show. Weekdays from 9 to 11 on Tide 100.9.
I went back and pulled a little Rosington Collins tune from 1980, Don't Misunderstand Me. Of course, spinoff of Leonard Skinner. Larry, you remember that tune pretty well. That was a pretty big hit for them.
Man, that was a big hit. We were glad to see that, because Leonard Skinner kind of went down the tubes there, until they got kind of like the Allman Brothers did, till they reunited. Yeah, that's a great album,
Yeah,
I think that was Dale Krantz actually Gary's wife singing.
Yes,
if I remember.
absolutely, absolutely. Dale Krantz, Gary Rosington, Alan Collins, and they had a couple albums. I think I'm not a Rosington Collins historian by any means, but that song was a hit for them. And I guess
they had another. This album here, this cut came off. You played is the best one. They had another one. It was okay, but Alan was having a lot of problems. Anyway. Yeah, that was a good band. And, I want to highlight a guy from Monroe, Alabama.
Okay.
Talking about Gary Rosington, the Damon Johnson from Monroeville, Alabama. He was in a band called Brother Kane. You might remember them.
Oh, absolutely. Brother Kane was a huge band in Alabama. Yeah.
Man, that is a great band. They were. I'm not sure he doubles, but Gary wanted him to take his place when he got sick, and Damon has ended up, playing with
Aerosmith
Skinner,
among others. Yeah, too.
Yeah, Alice Cooper and man, See, Alabama was so rich, man, and I forgot about him. I said I got to mention him.
Yeah,
but I wanted to go ahead.
No, I said you've been busy sending me some great pictures, so I know you got.
Yeah, we got our trip in, man. And my son's up here. He took 8 hours to drive from Tampa. I'm still in Ocilla because he don't know when he's going to be able to get back to the base. He's waiting to hear.
Yeah, that's right. Y'all are getting ready to deal. So your son lives in Tampa. Oh, my God.
He's stationed at MacDill down there at the Air Force. He's been in the Army 14 years, but his duty called him to go. He's living down there now. He's got one more year, and, boy, it don't look good. I'm telling you. Georgia's still getting over it. Now Florida's getting hit. But I wanted to get everybody's mind off football. Can we do a trivia question?
Sure.
All right. This all-white R&B rock band, or rock soul, recorded a Motown hit by the Temptations in 1970. And the song was Get Ready. They later recorded it live. It was 20 minutes. And it was still played on FM stations. I'd like to see if anybody remembers the name of that group.
All right, 205-342-9904 on the Pinnacle Park at North River hotline. If you know the answer, give that question one more time, Larry.
All right, it was a rock soul band, all white. They recorded a Temptation song, Get Ready, in 1970, and later recorded it on their live album, which was 22 minutes long, each member soloed, and it's still played on FM stations today. What was the name of the group?
Great question.
Had 4 or 5 big hits on the radio, and most of them were covers. What was amazing, but
well, if you know that answer, give us a call, 205-342-9904. Or if you want to just talk to Larry, people have been calling in every week kind of wanting to talk about their music memories. So, but if you want,
Gary, I'm on, while we're waiting, I'm going to go tell a little bit about me a little more.
Yeah, because a lot of people have been asking more about your musical journey.
I wanted to tell a story about, in the music business and anything, it's who you know and being at the right time, the right place, and recovering from a low, kind of like Alabama. Saturday they're going to have to recover, and it don't matter what it is. It's just life. But in 1971, after my road band disbanded, I got the call down in Jacksonville to play with a band. They contacted me through my lead singer then, because he was going to Valdosta State College on and off, and they were playing a lot at Valdosta State. And really, a lot of people were catching on to them, and they came up to my hometown. I was jamming with my keyboard player, and they walk in. They look like Free or Rod Stewart, the Faces. And they said, "We're looking for Larry Butler." And I said, "Well, you found him." They said, "Go get packed. We want you to play with us. We're leaving for Jacksonville," because the guitar player had a house down there. So I go down there and play, and I meet Leonard Skinner's roadies, and I started hearing about Leonard Skinner, this great band that was opening for big acts, and they were playing local bars. And kind of got my first taste of the first Leonard Skinner hanging around their roadies. Now, I never met any of the band members, but their roadies would come over to our guitar player's house and hang out. So, but our singer, after we broke up, I was down there a year. Our singer, this is what really stung. Our vocalist was really good. He was somewhere between Paul Rogers and Rod Stewart, and had a heck of a, and you don't know who he is, had a heck of a look on stage, and still does. He got a call from Elvin Bishop. Well, first of all, let me go back before that. Muscle Shoals, Jimmy Johnson was calling our guitar player, Ernie Pilcher. They wanted somebody to take Dwayne's place because Ernie was a great slide player. But Ernie never followed up on it. And every day, I remember every other day, one of the band members, Jimmy Johnson's on the phone wanting to talk with you, Ernie. He's wanting you to come over and bring the band. So I'm in the middle of something happening, and then something didn't happen. So our singer, after we break up, Elvin Bishop hears a tape of him with his group then at Capricorn Records. He was doing demos, and he called him and said, "Man, come up here. I got a song I want you to record."
Well, I'm pretty sure I know who it is.
Yeah, and he said, Mickey Thomas.
Yeah,
so Mickey Thomas from Cairo, Georgia. Mm-hmm. And I'm having to deal with this now. I'm back home licking my wounds and trying to decide what I'm going to do, and I'm not even 19 yet. Next thing I know, I was 20. Fooled around and fell in love on the radio, wide open. But the problem was that everybody thought it was Elvin Bishop singing.
That's right, and it wasn't.
It was Mickey Thomas.
Yeah, Elvin.
And later,
great guitar player, not much of a singer.
Oh my Lord, yeah. And so Mickey got the call after Bishop with Jefferson Starship. The rest is history.
Yeah,
and I think you played that song one time. I Built This City on Rock and Roll. One of the shows does. But every time I hear it, I say, "That's my boy."
Well, I missed it. Do you talk to Mickey at all anymore?
I do.
Okay.
I do, and I missed it. That's the point I'm making.
Yeah.
I was at the right time at the right place, and I missed it. And I had to live with that for years.
Yeah.
I had to live with it.
Well, the thing I've never met him. I'm with you. He's a great singer. And we got a bunch of phone calls, so we'll get to him here.
Go ahead.
I've read that he is just a stand-up guy, just a great guy. That's what I've read about Mickey Thomas. Just a really good person.
The band was called Shaking Britches, man, and we were unique. We were doing British rock blues because he could do it.
Yeah.
He had this killer slide player.
Yeah.
We looked like the Faces. And I got so close, Gary, and I'm not ashamed of my career. I did okay. But I got so close, my foot was in the door, and it just shut. You know what I mean?
Neil Schon actually talked to Mickey Thomas about possibly replacing Steve Perry. It didn't happen, but I'd read they had some conversations.
We know Mickey got beat up bad by his drummer, the one he played with at Elvin Bishop. They had a big fight. He liked to kill me. Yeah, that's a lot. We'll talk about that later. It's not
all right,
pretty,
listen, phone calls are lined up. We got Tom, Roland, Thomas in Reno, Nevada, and RV. And we'll take Tom first. If you know the trivia question, I guess go ahead and answer it, Tom. And then if not, we'll get it from somebody else. Hey, good morning, Tom.
Hey, Gary. Hey, Larry. Good to hear you. Love this segment every week.
I love hearing the sheriff's in town. You've been hot on the radio this week.
Well, no worries, the sheriff not gonna miss Wednesday. I guarantee you that. Let me say the answer to the trivia question. I believe that's rare earth.
You got it, brother.
Wow, good call, Tom.
You go, Sheriff.
The strange thing is that album was one of my favorites, and
22 minutes.
And I love that guy's vocal.
Rivera. Yeah. Drummer sang, played a double bass set of Ludwig's. He was killer. But they had 5 big hits. Hey, Big Brother, I Just Want to Celebrate. On and on, man. I'm Losing You. They had about 6 hits.
Yeah, they were good.
Because they were white.
Larry, I wanted to ask you this. I love the Blue Eyed Soul guys.
Oh, yeah. Rivera.
Well, I mean, all those bands, the Blue Eyed Soul.
Oh, yeah.
In general, yeah.
In general, yes.
That was kind of a sub genre of music.
And they were rock. You know, that song's 22 minutes long with a drum solo.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I love the radio cut, though.
Well, Tom, good
I do
job.
too.
And anybody else
All
that's
right, buddy.
waiting, yeah, appreciate it, man. Thank you so much. And we're going to get to, it looks like RV is next up, and then Thomas, and then Roland. Hey, RV.
Hey, good morning, guys.
And remember, Larry RV is a long-time radio guy.
Yeah, I have to watch. I have to be careful with him. He knows.
Yeah,
He knows the stuff.
Ago, we were talking about the origination of Wet Willie's name. This morning, I want to talk about Marshall Tucker, Marshall Tucker Band. Yeah, you know, when I was spinning those vinyls back in the 70s, of course, we didn't have internet back then. I thought Marshall Tucker was the name of, like the lead of the band. I did not know where that name had come from. And I do know now, that
The story?
Marshall Tucker he was actually a blind piano tuner.
That's right.
They got that name from. And I'm like, that's pretty incredible. And I was looking at that this morning. He just died last year.
Wow.
I mean,
How old was he, RV? How old?
Huh?
How old was he when he passed?
99.
Wow. Yeah, he had to be old.
Yeah.
You know, one of our first shows, Gary, we talked about that. I told that story.
You did.
What it was, the key they had Marshall Tucker on it. They rented the place where he tuned pianos. And see, listen, a lot of people thought Leonard Skinner was the person, which, was. They thought Leonard Skinner was the lead vocalist.
That's
for
right.
years.
Yeah, those days.
That. I mean, everybody did.
You got to remember, this was the 70s. There was no internet.
Right.
You'd hear these records, and you'd see the band name, and a lot of people assumed if there was a name, that it was somebody in the band. Yeah, that's just the way
So
it
was
was.
the high school coach.
Yeah. High school gym teacher at Ed White High School in Jacksonville. I think he was at Ed White High School. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Another thing I wanted to mention was I did not know, when Toy Caldwell, who wrote most of those early songs for Marshall Tucker, he actually was a Purple Heart recipient.
He sure was. He's a military guy.
Injured in Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
And
Military
I thought
guy.
that was kind of cool. And he had as they were trying to get started over there around Spartanburg, he had a group. I think it was called something like Toy Factory or something like that.
Toy Factory, yeah.
Toy Factory, yeah, him. And I see that I believe it's Doug Gray. I think Doug's like the only one left of the original group of Marshall Tucker still playing.
He is.
That right?
Yeah. That's another story I want to talk about sometime is how people feel about just one member in the band. Should it be a tribute band? And, there's a lot of people talking about Leonard Skinner now. And I stay out of that because I know if I had a chance to play with any of them, I'd take it. I mean, I don't care what, But Doug Gray is the only member left.
Yeah. Well, that Mickey Thomas story is a good one.
Well, I held that back because we were going into Leonard Skinner, the month of October is their month, the 20th, when the plane went down, and I thought we'd kind of start talking about Skinner,
Yeah, that's right. This is the anniversary month, unfortunately. Yeah.
Both those songs, Can't You See, and the Hurt It in a Love Song, those were two great songs for sure.
Hey, thank you, RV.
All right, have a great day.
Appreciate it. All right, next up is going to be Thomas out in Reno, Nevada. Hey, Thomas. Thomas, you there? All right, I punched through. That might have been my fault. Every time I seem to punch. Larry, you still with us, aren't you?
Yeah, man, I'm here.
All right. Put Thomas back on hold, and let's go to Roland. You punch him through. For some reason, Chase, when I punch him through, we have issues. Roland, you there?
Yes, sir.
All right, you're on with Larry Butler.
Hey, Roland.
Yeah, I just want to tell Larry I really enjoy his show every segment every week. And I talked to Larry about a month ago.
I remember you.
We talked about 45 minutes, I think. We talked about how
I told Gary that. I said, man, you wouldn't believe I got a call. We talked 45 minutes. You were about the group we talked about that won't later change their name or part of the group,
But, there's a lot of great groups in the 60s and 70s that We talked about winning in the Hall of Fame. It should be. And, it just irritates me that the groups from that era don't get the recognition today, they deserve.
Well, the reason is, and we talked about this, brother, most of these people are dead, and this new like football, this new thing, they're not in tune. They don't know. They just know what they know, and all these groups are forgotten about that should get acknowledged, Don't get me started on that, because I have a rough time with that. The 60s and 70s, man, was a heyday. You know what I mean?
There's a couple groups I was going to ask you about. A couple of my favorites one was Grassroots and Rob Grill, and and also in Boston I love Boston in the 70s and early 80s. Do you have
that was recorded in a basement? That was Tom Schultz's project, and they didn't have a clue how big that album was going to be. They knew it was good. They recorded it in his basement, and that's one of the biggest selling albums ever.
It's a great album.
It's in the top 10. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah.
I know at one time Fleetwood Mac was one of the top albums of all time, too. Rumors.
Oh, yeah.
I saw Boston in Atlanta right in the beginning when they came out in the middle 70s.
Yeah, they were awesome.
Yeah. They were good.
Yeah,
that guy had a real distinctive voice, Brad Delp. He was good.
All right, Roland.
I believe he passed away.
He did.
About 10, 12
He
years
did.
ago?
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Okay,
right.
Larry, really enjoy it, man.
Thank you, Roland.
Thank you,
Beautiful
Thank
Lake Gunnersville. All right, punch Bryce through, Chase. Hey, Bryce.
First of all, I apologize for yesterday. I was listening to Wimp. He got me started. That's all I'm
Well, I
gonna
appreciate
say.
you apologizing. I'd rather you not drop that word on our air from.
I won't.
before.
I won't. But and before I got it out, I said I shouldn't have done that. But I apologize.
All right,
Larry,
thank
how are
you.
you? Larry.
Yes, sir. What you got?
Hey, is everything getting better in South Georgia?
We're getting back to normal. A lot of trash. My son, I'm just telling Gary, stationed in Tampa, he's here now. He don't know what he's going to go back to, and he's waiting to hear from his superiors what they're going to be asked to do in security. But he has a condo down there, and we just don't know, man. He just don't know, what it's going to be like.
Well, I hope they don't get y'all again. But my friend in Twin Cities said it looked like a war zone there. Is that
yeah, up that way is bad, man.
Yeah.
They're worse off than we are. It was bad enough here, but it'll be a long process for them. People still don't have power.
I appreciate you. Well, we're just going to have to, on the football, we're just going to have to play some defense,
Yeah,
Well,
they're gonna have to be better than they were in this last game defensively. They're
The
gonna
story
have a
I
hard
was
time
telling
getting
Gary about, you got to pick up the pieces and try to make something out of something. I thought that story I told because I had a rough time regrouping after that, missing the boat, so to speak.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what happened with Alabama. It's just life, man.
Yeah, you got to come back.
Maybe those guys will grow up a little bit.
Yeah, it's like Coach DeBoer said. It's all about how you respond now, and we'll find that out on Saturday. Hey, thank you, Bryce.
Hey, I appreciate y'all. Y'all have a good day, okay?
I appreciate you. All right, Larry, we got to wrap it up, man. But I tell you, the phone calls and they've been great, and the segments. It's kind of I've had a couple people ask me about staying on point, and I said, well, when we take the phone calls, we're going to kind of go with the callers, but we cover a lot of ground, and the rare earth was a great one. The Mickey Thomas story still is blowing my mind because again,
I held that back. A lot of people. I'm not a boaster. It was just a part of my life. I felt that was I had a chance to do something, and it just didn't work out, and I'm so glad he did. I mean, the whole band's still alive, and we're happy for him. All four guys.
It would really be neat if because his name recognition is so great. If all you guys could get back together and play a show, wouldn't that be awesome over there?
Man, our band was so good. That guitar player could have done well at most of the shows. There was just a lot going on. Mickey actually mentioned the band years ago in an interview. He said, that bunch from Jacksonville I played with, he said, well, I ain't going to say what he said because he said them SOBs could really play. He said, I miss them. but he did well, man. He did about as good as you want to do for a career.
Yeah, he's one of the best. He's recognized as one of the top singers of all time. And
always, Rodney Justo always says that's his favorite. Plays with the Camden.
Yeah, and that early when he first joined Starship, when they had gone from the airplane, and he kind of, and oh man, Marty Ballin, had moved on, and
they kind of all just, and then he got with that lineup.
But some of the early stuff with him, with Jane, and some of those songs, man, rock songs that by the mid '80s, the Built This City and all that. Not going there, that was great. But some of the stuff that he did with them before they really had that second where they just went boom time again was really good stuff.
Gary, I'll count on Jimmy Boakles to sing Jane. That song there was rock and roll, bro.
Yeah, it was loved it. That was one of those when I was in, 10th, 11th grade that you put on the turntable and you just kept taking the needle and playing that one song over.
When we were playing, Mickey did Sam Cooke songs like Rod Stewart. Mickey was very big in R&B.
Yeah.
You can hear it in Fooled Around and Fell in Love.
Yeah,
he loved soul music.
Well, Larry, great stuff, man. I got to hit the break, my friend, but we'll do it.
Enjoyed it, Gary. We'll get through. Everybody will keep on trucking, man. That's all we do.
And we'll keep everybody in our thoughts there in Florida again as we get braced for another big hurricane. Thank you, Larry.
Thank you, sir.
All right, we'll be back to wrap up this edition of the Gary Harris Show right after this on Tide 100.9 FM and 1230 AM WTBC.
Weather Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
It's a dry forecast through the weekend. Lots of sunshine today, the high 83. Clear tonight, the low 57. For tomorrow and Friday, the sky's sunny both days. Highs between 78 and 81. And Saturday, sunny with a high at 81. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 71 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
Never miss a moment of the action. Download the free Tide 100.9 app today.
All right, time flies when you're having fun. Hope you enjoyed that show. We covered a lot of different ground there this morning, and I certainly had a good time with it. Appreciate all of you folks. I want to remind you to follow me on social media, on Twitter at Gary Harris _WVUA, and on Facebook it's WVUA23 Gary Harris. And I have really been posting a ton of content on my Facebook page, WVUA23 Gary Harris. Just search it on Facebook. Give me a follow if you don't mind on Twitter and Facebook. I would really appreciate it. And, of course, continue to follow me here on Tide 100.9 FM and WVUA23. Update on WVUA23. We've taken bids for the transmitter repair, and now we're in the process of trying to find the tower climbers. Hopefully, we're going to be back at full power very soon. I hope so. All right, we got get out on the way here for T-Town Sports Daily. I'll be back tomorrow morning with a jam-packed Thursday edition, including the coach, Ellis Johnson. Talk to you then. For Chase, I'm Gary. Have a great day, everybody. Enjoy.
Listening to the Gary Harris Show on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.